Hello, my name is host Eric. Welcome to Talking with Famous People. And this evening I want to do a quick introduction to cognitive functions for the uninitiated, for somebody who's coming to cognitive functions brand new, would like to understand what they mean and how they relate to their MBTI personality type, perhaps. So, the reality is that we use perspectives when we approach life, and we are required by any given moment to prioritize one. And the easiest way to understand this is to imagine yourself in a situation where you knew you were being hunted. You were in the woods, that there was a crazy guy, and he had a slingshot, and he was shooting you with rocks. And he was trying to hit you in the head with a big enough rock to knock you down and kill you. Well, as you're walking through the forest, what perspective are you prioritizing? Are you thinking about philosophy? Are you focusing on your emotions, which are terror? Are you focusing on something else? Well, in an ideal, I think for just about everybody at that point, you're going to be using a function called extroverted sensing, which is you're going to be focusing on what your ears and your eyes and your nose are telling you. You're trying to pay attention to every little sound, trying to figure out where this guy is and what his next move is. Try to get away. Try to keep your eyes open for any way out. That's extroverted sensing. Now, you could be using, at the same time, introverted thinking. You could be analyzing his behavior patterns thus far. You could be trying to figure out his motivations. You could be thinking of possible alternative approaches you could use. You'd be doing a lot of things that involve abstraction in order that you might take some piece of data from the outside world and produce some conclusion that's some distance away from that data you've derived using introverted thinking. Now, you've got a third option that's probably going to come into play, which is you may reflect back on your past experiences, if you've had similar past experiences. Well, what did I do that other time that other maniac was chasing me in the woods? You get chased a lot. Who knows? He had a knife, so it was a little different, but I can reference that. Well, what have I seen in my preparing to go into the wilderness? I watched a lot of wilderness videos, wilderness preparation videos. What have I seen on those? What can I use that is familiar to me already to make the best of this unusual situation? That would be introverted sensing. If the reality is, in that situation, you wouldn't want to use all your 8 cognitive functions that are potentially available, even if you had them all available to you. And the fact is, in any given situation, none of us use more than a combination of a couple of them. Each of us has 4 functions, and each of those functions has an orientation, introverted or extroverted. And we see the difference between extroverted and introverted orientation with a function like sensing, where extroverted means I'm paying attention to sensory data that's in the outside world. Introverted sensing means I'm paying attention to what sensory data I experienced before, that which is familiar, that which is in your memory. With thinking, introverted thinking is about abstract model, abstracting and deductive reasoning and stuff. Extroverted thinking is about organizational systemization and things that one does in the outside world to make models or plans be manifest. So the introverted thinker might come up with a great plan. The extroverted thinker would come up with a protocol to execute that plan, or would do a protocol to execute that plan. They tend to want to see their logics in the world rather than just in their head. With feeling, it's a little bit more of a tricky matter to understand. We all obviously have feelings. So, but for me, for example, I'm an extroverted feeler, which this means is my introverted feeling, actual own feelings, are difficult for me to understand. They tend to come and go quickly in little waves, or I may be experiencing emotions and not even being aware of it, or not quite sure what those are, or stuff like that. That kind of thing happens with me, being a type that's particularly distant from his own feelings. The extrovert feeler is somebody who's looking to make their way through the world using management of the feelings of others, knowing that if they can make other people happy, then they're going to achieve what they need from life. They're going to get their rewards in that domain as well, which is to say they'll feel satisfied when they see other people are experiencing joy. They're very others focused if you have extrovert feeling in the dominant slot. The thing that complicates all this is, of course, there's an order to them. We've talked about the fact that you've got 4 that are in the mix, somewhere in your stack. That they alternate in order I didn't mention yet, extroverted, introverted. So I'm what's called ENTP personality type. It begins extroverted intuition, followed by introverted thinking, followed by extroverted feeling, followed by introverted sensing. Whatever type you are, your cognitive functions will alternate in that fashion. Now Jung and the MBTI model and the cognitive function model, Socionics and such, claim that there are 2 judging functions, namely thinking and feeling, and 2 perceiving functions, sensing and intuition. I disagree with that understanding of it. I think there's one judging function, that's intuition. There is one sensing function, that's sensing. And there are 2 justification/execution functions, thinking and feeling. You can interpret it however you wish, but I think the approach I provide there makes a little bit more sense. I see intuition, the trickiest of the ones, the cognitive functions to describe, as being a relationship to truth. That is to say, the extroverted intuitor sees truth as created. If you have extroverted intuition in the dominant slot, like I do, you tend to be able to make stuff up on the fly very easily. I'm improvising this whole speech, obviously, and I haven't written anything down, and yet you probably haven't noticed a lot of repetition or ums and ahs or other problems with my diction or vocalization of the ideas. And the reason for this is because I lead with extroverted intuition and follow with introverted thinking. So expression of abstract modeling and analysis of this sort in an improvisational fashion is something that comes naturally to me. There are other types that are just as smart or smarter than the ENTP, but they are less skilled at improvisation. For example, I'm very interested in speaking with a very, very bright person who watches this show named Megapro. It's not the fanciest sounding name, perhaps, but he has some fancy ideas. Anyway, he indicated that he wasn't entirely comfortable with the idea of being interviewed. At least it wasn't intuitively something he embraced. I'm very curious about that. So I know how intelligent he is. I see his ideas. He writes them in the comments and such. And yet I would guess that he's a little less comfortable with improvisational stuff. And I would say that the reason for that is because he leads with NI, I believe. And it's either that or TI. NI, I think it is. I think he corrected me on this once already. I don't want to make the same mistake again, but I'm going to because I got shitty SI. Anyway, he leads with NI, and that would mean that he's very much about discovered truth, that his arguments would probably come to him not necessarily in rapid succession as the NE does, but they'd be powerful, deep, insightful arguments, probably more so. However, I'd like to think the ENTP in a sort of adversarial discourse would probably overwhelm that personality type with just spread them out, so to speak, on the debate ground. Throw so many arguments on the flow that ends up taking the round. So strategically, in a structured debate round, probably the ENTP still would have an advantage, but that doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form that the ENTP would have an advantage in a untimed chess match style debate round, right? Untimed chess match style debate round, turn-based untimed chess match style debate round. I'm beginning to think the INTJ would be pretty damn hard to beat. Anyway, of course I only know one, and I only know them by the internet. But they're rare, I think, is why. I never really met one before. I don't think. Maybe they're just hidden. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's my introduction to cognitive functions. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found it informative. And if you're a regular viewer and you already know all this stuff, I think you might have found it interesting to sort of go back to the beginning and review some of the basics with me, as I found it interesting to review some of the basics with me here tonight as well. So thanks a lot for watching, and have a pleasant evening, and don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. It's the only way that you'll grow up big and strong.